Check, check. Okay, hi guys. My name is Bongisio. My name is Karisio Azabedo, but my stage name is Bongisio. So, am I clear right now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something new for me. I've been a teacher and stuff like that. It's been a while I've given a lecture, but thanks to Sir Claude for having me here and for the panel. It's an honor for me to be here. So, I've been here to talk about music inheritance. But we're not just not going to talk about music inheritance. It's not just a lecture. It's going to be an interactive session, and I want you all to be involved in this. So we know that music has been a part of Goan life, right? Yes. So do we know how this music today that we hear exists here? Is because of our ancestors, the folk music, the cultural music, the Portuguese that came here, introduced us to Western music. So in short, we know how music survived in Goa and how we have it today. So now I'll tell you a personal thing, how I inherited music in my life. As a Goan boy living in a village, my dad was into music. He plays the saxophone. He had the love to play and the hard work that he did to play for Lorna too. Then his brothers, my uncles were musicians. Then my grandfather was a musician, and the chain continues. So if you see, music is something that we all once breathe. Is it? Like if music starts, we'll either start nodding our head or we'll start, keeping the rhythm. So it is simple. Music runs in the blood. Okay? So this is how I inherited music. It was never pushed onto me. It was not like you have to do this. It was just there in the air. I had to just breathe it. And today I have music with me. I do Konkani rap, but if you hear some of my songs, I will still talk about the old days, the old ways, the teachings of my parents, the teachings of my ancestors, the fields, the beauty, the mangoes, the summers, the time when we would go in someone else's land and throw stones and get mangoes. So it wasn't right, but that was the thrill. That was a thrill. Sir, Badkar down at all, and you'd be like, this is wrong. But that was a thrill. There was no hard, what you call it, putting behind bars or something like that. There was a self-awareness that, okay, this was wrong, but at the same time, something called as Mostepon, and we would go around and doing all that. This is how I inherited music with me, and this is how a lot of families in Goa inherited music. The next thing we are going to talk about is how the simple concept of fish curry rice that keeps the whole of Goa together in emotions. Do you all agree to this?
Yes.
So I was just reading I didn't get the chance to read the whole the book, but I read the first 3 pages, and I thought that if I read the whole book, then it was going to take me a whole day to talk about it. So the first 3 pages, what it told me was, fish curry rice is just not a recipe. You all agree? A Goan who feels that fish curry rice is just a recipe, sorry, you all can shoot me after this, but you're not a Goan. If y'all consider fish curry rice as a recipe, you are not Goans. Fish curry rice is a way of living, is a way of telling people that we are Goans. Right? Simple as that. One more thing that really moved me, what Sir wrote was, from north to south, east to west in Goa, like from Perne to Kankona, from this side to Donapal to Ponda area. Everybody are connected with this simple way of living, that is fish curry rice. You take anything from a Goan, take your property, take anything, take your car, take anything, but you take fish curry rice, sheet kodi na kabar. We fight about different issues, but at 1 p.m., a Goan needs fish curry rice. That is not because it is just a tasty recipe, it is because it's emotion, it's a way of saying that we are Goans. Next, how has Goa come to life today? Who influenced this technology of Kazan lands, the saltwater distribution to the fields? Uh, I would not give you all something very complicated to understand. I will talk about my personal experience. When I was young, my dad would take me to Manas. Mancheru, Kulyo, Goropak, East Goropak, and we used to go on the hills, Kanna, Kazu. My dad is sitting right there. He's been a teacher to me. He's always taken me and showed me this different things. Then another thing that he showed me was the water management system that the Portuguese left for us. You know, the plank system where you leave the water so that the contaminated water goes to the fields, goes out. From the fields, they go out so that the crops remain in a good manner, so that we get water and we have to be self-sufficient. So these all things which were always there, but you know, it was not, for me, it was being in a village, was not only going to school, learning geography, history, and come back home. I was learning about some other country, New Zealand, what is happening, what I will do, what is happening in New Zealand, what's happening in my next field outside my house, what's happening in the other village, why is hill cutting happening, what will be the consequences. So that's where I really appreciate Sir for putting it down in this book, because we don't need books to learn about other countries. Okay, fine, maybe you're traveling, you all can have a small synopsis about, okay, I'm going to UK, this was the history, this is done. You're not going to live there, you're not going to make a difference there. You have to make a difference here, in your land, in our land. I would not say it is my land, it's our land, right? Is it our land? It is our land. And it's not like we are not open to people coming here and living. We are open to people, but the way of living has to be Goan. The culture, the heritage, all these have to be safeguarded. It has to be preserved. Not for us, but what about that young kid sitting behind over there? He has the right to live what we have lived, right? He has the right to feel what we felt. Today, poor thing, he is coming out like, Papa, it's so hot. But 15, 20 years back, it wasn't this hot. So we need to tell them why, what's the reason, why it is hot. It's because somewhere down the line we were lazy, we didn't voice up, and we still have time. Still youth like us, who the youngsters think like, hey, what he's talking about. But we are still there, we are here. We are here to motivate the youngsters to come ahead and do things like us, to voice out. And sirs playing a very major role in helping us come out from our shell and speak out. And I would want all of you all to push this to the younger generation so it can be, so that we can preserve this for the future. So the next one, I'm coming to my end. I just got 12 minutes, so I have to finish in 12 minutes. So I have to make this happen. Okay, still we'll make it happen. So the next one is, wait, I can't see. Are we really independent even after Portugal giving us the technology of water conservation? Still, after the opinion poll, did we safeguard our culture and ethnicity? So now I will ask you all a question. Are we independent? And what do we understand by the term independent? See, we all know we had this great fight, when we were free from Portugal, India came into the picture, and after in some years there was a big argument that every Goan did. They came on the road. आवाज केलो तेणी आमकां गोंया separate जाय. Why? Because of what? We didn't want to be a part of Maharashtra. We wanted to be different. We wanted to be Goa. Fine, that was a good fight. Why we wanted to be different? Because of our language, because of our culture, because of the land, because we were not a metro city, we had the nature. We fought for it, we got it. But today, did we save it? Did we preserve it? I want an answer. Did we preserve and did we save it? Yes or no?
No.
Why is the question. Did we become greedy? Or did we think that, असे रे, थोड्या टायमान Portuguese passport करून UK वयतले? Huh? This is very important. The reason why we were different is our culture was different, our style was different, our food was different, our way of living was different, our heritage was different, and our history was different. We didn't want highways, we didn't want big infrastructure, because that was already there. There are capital cities like there is Delhi, there is Mumbai, where metro had already been like the buildings and the concrete jungle was already there. People from Goa would go to work there and stuff like that. I understand all of that. But what was different that we had was our land, the virgin beaches. What we had is what we are losing today. The beauty of nature, the beautiful sand, the canals, we have lost it because of the negative word which is Sir says is development. Not the positive development has not happened here. The development that is happening is the negative one, and we have to open our eyes now. We can't just be in this room and be like, okay, this is something that's happening wrong and I'm feeling bad about it, but I'm not doing anything about it. Doesn't make any sense. I try to do my bit with my music. I talk about social issues. I talk about the current affairs. But that doesn't mean that just because I have a voice, because I have a talent, I can do it. All of us can do it. Everybody can voice. There's no hard fast rule that I have to go in an institution to learn how to voice. Simple. When you're young, your parents tell you not to do this, you question that, you voice. That is not taught to you anyway. It's human nature. Human nature is to question. But when you get scared is when someone else takes advantage of it. So with this, I'm going to end my thing. And I came across a beautiful quote since we are having this talk in a museum. This really, kind of, I thought I would put it out to you all. So it is, the quote is, culture isn't a museum piece. If we don't live it, speak it, farm it, sing it, it dies. And no one else will save it for us. Dev Bore Karu. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, the panel. Kota, without rap, I'm not going. And you all are going to be a part of it. So I hope what I said might have brought some light and must have moved little bit of your emotions towards saving this beautiful land that we have, whatever is left of it. So this next one, I want your help. And it's simple. You all have to repeat after me. Come on. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Amka naka development, all those lies. Simple. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. So I just prepared this last night. And I'm going to freestyle. I've not written anything, only the chorus so that you all can sing with me. Okay? So make some noise for Goa, let's go! Yeah? Pierwsze co burgo, Bongisio. Focus kurta konkani music for our future generation. Let's go! Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Hey, tuka kite sango burgia pornara mi vuitale sheta. Magir vuitale ami mashe agrarani vuitale niste goro bak. Ay baba niste motta ata utkan. Porje boya da kite zata udakan. Ham ne kizala. Tuka kite zaite sang baba fogot goan karburgo ata tuka sauce kite de sanga. Sir cloud nata book kela. Tumi open korun degi nata to bacha. Ani fish curry rice hoy emotion nata fogot jord bashete jainaka. Tuka kite sango puile kite zatale. Sogle ektai sam goan karburge bari yetale. Ata soglang dusऱ्याचे white korun za. Mogot puishar lagar goan kari goan dile ey. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Fish curry rice, fish curry rice. Amka naka development, all those lies. Boy, that atulya burya boy. best of आमचो फ्युचर तुमकां रे बोय तुमकां जाय ते बरें आतां सांगा भुरग्यांक नाच जाल्यार तुमी सोदतले आमचे आगोर आनी दुसरी झाडां आतां कातोत्ता कितें तुमी करता तुमकां खबर ना फ्युचर कितें जातलो तेजे टी-शर्टाचेर तें आतां बरयलां आनी तुका कितें सांगो सराक सांगलां सराची उतरां सारकी तुमी आयका दुसऱ्यांच्या भाशेन पयशांक लागो तुमची जमीन आतां भायल्या लोकांक विको नाका हांव आतां सिंपल भुरगो म्हाजी उतरां तुमकां लायक जाता जाल्यार मातसो वयर काडा आनी आवाज करा फिश करी रायस भुकाक लागोन आमी आतां आवाज करूया सिंगींग फिश करी रायस आमकां नाका डेव्हलपमेंट ऑल दोज लायस फिश करी रायस आमकां नाका डेव्हलपमेंट ऑल दोज लायस फिश करी रायस आमकां नाका डेव्हलपमेंट ऑल दोज लायस फिश करी रायस आमकां नाका डेव्हलपमेंट ऑल दोज लायस देव बरें करूं people thank you so much this is Bongisio and thank you everybody for having me here cheers and God bless you all.
I wish I could have done that. As a matter of fact, the first, when you look at the progression from the 1992 edition to the 2005 edition, you can see Bongisio and all sorts of other people coming into the picture. The first edition in 1992 was black and white. And we had to convert all our color photographs to grayscale. And we had to keep that in mind. So there had to be some contrast. Otherwise, it all appears a black smudge on the page. And we had to be very conscious about cost. We had to use only cream or map litho paper. And there was nothing that we could do about it. But despite that, that book went through 3 editions in just 2 years. And since the copies were over, we had to again bring it out. That is the 4th edition. But then we are very conscious that Goa is changing all the time. And if you just bring out a 1992 edition in 2002, it's really doing injustice to the person who is buying the book. So we revised it. So many of the things that were there in the first book actually disappeared. In the first book, we had a chapter on Goa as a free port. There was a conscious central government, state government decision to declare Goa, the whole state of Goa, as a free port, to which there was massive opposition. And thankfully, in 2002, that chapter disappears because there is no free port. But I mean, if we had reprinted it, it would have made no sense. And in the first chapter, first edition, there was a lot in the Konkan Railway, which again did a lot of damage to the Kazan areas, and again, over which there was a huge agitation, and the central government had to stop the work, order a special committee, inquiry committee, and all that. We delayed the Konkan Railway for 4 years, and finally, it smashed the economics of the Konkan Railway, which we didn't want. But the first year in which the Konkan Railway finally declared a surplus was in 2023 for a project started in 1990. So this is what happens when you do things that people don't want. You can wreck your finances. You can do it. You go ahead and put the railway because you are God. You are a railway engineer, and nobody can protest against you. But you go ahead and do it nonetheless. But there will be serious consequences, and those consequences are there till today. With the result is that they can't double that line because of the way they planned the first line, and they just wanted to get through the first line. So many of these issues which are there are not there, and then in 2002 to 2025, there's a 20-year gap, and people kept this bookseller in Panjam Broadway used to come to me and say that, Claude, let me just print it as it is. I'll give you 200 copies, but let me just print it as it is. I said, no, it's beyond my dignity to go and to reprint this as it is, because a lot of the issues have changed. The book can be improved in many ways and so on. And really what hit me at the end was somebody telling me, I just bought a copy of fish curry rice. And he said, where? Telling me that he got a copy of fish curry rice. He said, I got it from Amazon for $5,000. Somebody had offloaded a second-hand copy and got it sold for 5,000 rupees. So I said, no, there must be some money in this. So at Goa Foundation, always look out for some financial support for all that it does. So I said, okay, now we will sit down. So I finally got, God sent me, I'm not responsible, God sent me a woman from Kerala who came here. I had met her there, she came here and she said, I want some work. I said, okay. She was extraordinary. I said, Nivedita was her name. I said, can you help me to update this? And she really did an extraordinary amount of work. It was supposed to be 6 months. It took 2 years. Partly because we didn't have the time. I mean, we used to be, requisition for court proceedings, and these high courts are, Supreme Courts. They fix dates whenever they want. So you drop everything, you drop all your work. You've got to file a counter affidavit or a rejoinder or something. And we operate under a very, I don't know what to call her, but very difficult senior advocate. So if things are not there on time, the previous evening itself on her table, I mean, there's hell to pay for all of us, including no dinner. So, so it used to get continuously delayed, and at the end of 2 years, she said, no, it's time for me to go, because I don't think this book is ever going to, and that gave me a shock. I said, no, now we are going to finish it, and we somehow or the other got it through. But now it's a different book because, first of all, it's in color, rampant color, you could say, and Goan color. If you look at the very first picture of the fish, which was Beena Naik's picture, it's remarkable. But if you look at the you can look at the color. Now, these are pictures of kingfishers in Goa, 8 species. Goa has got 8 species of kingfisher. All of Europe has got only one. And when people talk against real estate projects, they talk about driving these guys away, because every real estate project knocks down vegetation, knocks down the place for the birds to be comfortable, to fly about, to do whatever. Wherever there is no development, no real estate taking place, there are ample number of birds, ample number of nests and so on. But these are, the most beautiful one is the guy on the top. He's so small, he's not bigger than this, kingfishers. They are all in the book. Then we talk about natural beauties which people never see because they live in this part of town. They don't go into the interior. This is the Surla waterfalls. And it's called the Call of the Beloved, Falls of the Beloved in Konkani. Because there is a good deal of romance in Konkani also. Don't think it only happens in Hollywood films or Indian films. And this is a waterfall that will be killed by the Made Water Diversion Project. It will no longer exist if there is a Made Diversion Project. And that's why all the people in Goa are upset over it. Now, the Made project was not at all there in the first book. It was not even there in the second book. It was not even an issue. And the Made Tribunal only set up in 2010. It begins to work in 2013. So we said, how do we represent that? And we got a good opportunity of presenting and showing how this spring, this waterfall and several other waterfalls are linked to the Made River, coming in from 2 different sources, and the proposals for the Made diversion are basically to cut off at the head. That is what the head springs, we call the head springs of the rivers, that is the origins of the rivers, to divert all those 5 springs from those 5 rivers which feed the Made to grow sugarcane in Karnataka. That was the crux of the entire Made tribe. And we were able to put up, I'm not giving you too many maps because they are all there in the book. And when we talk about infrastructure, we tried to introduce for the first time what is infrastructure. Why do you interpret infrastructure only as roads and highways? Why don't you look at forest as an infrastructure? Because the government of India itself has decided that forests provide environmental services. A road may provide mobility. It also gives you a good opportunity to put a lot of carbon back into the atmosphere because of those bloody vehicles. But an infrastructure of forest and wildlife is an important infrastructure. Nobody can say it's worse. Nobody can say it's better. I would say it's better as an environmentalist, but I'm saying that I'm subject to any discussion on this to say what type of infrastructure. Why do you delete one type of infrastructure to install another type of infrastructure? Why are you who's making those comparisons? And who's doing those cost benefit studies? Nobody. So they said, no, if you are putting physical infrastructure in, green infrastructure is out. That is the present theory of progress. And there's nothing you can do about it, because if you look at what is happening in the Andamans now, they are removing more than, 164 square kilometers of primary forest to accommodate Adani's transshipment ports. The most ridiculous proposal ever to be seen for a planet which is suffering, already undergoing the rigors of climate change and already quite in severe ecosystem distress. Now this guy we put, because I said maybe some girl is going to kiss him and turn him into a prince. This is a common a bullfrog which you find in all the villages in the coastal areas. Unfortunately, there people used to go and hunt him because of the legs, and you have frog legs which are called jumping chicken in many restaurants. But unfortunately, that's all part of history now, because now it's no longer permitted. But I remember in my childhood, just like Bongisio was saying, youngsters, like I was not a youngster when I came to Goa, but my three boys, the primary complaint against them from the neighbors, and neighboring particularly landlords, is that these fellows have come and taken the toras. And that has not changed. That culture has not changed. Even till today, you'll have, when a young boy sees a toras, girls don't do it, but when a young boy sees a raw mango on the tree, I think his mouth starts watering with that, salt and that chili powder and so on, and then he goes berserk. And then yeah, it is right. And then the trick is in getting him to attract the landlord to chase him. That's the main thing. I don't think it's the fact that somebody who's been sleeping siesta, having a siesta, getting up and then trying to run in all wild directions because somebody is trying to throw stones to remove those toras. And of course, the tiger becomes a major issue in the new fish curry rice, because 6 tigers have died in Goa from 2009 to 2026. And the government of Goa, the forest department headed by Vishwajit Rane, says that no tigers exist in the state of Goa. They are tourists. They come from adjoining Karnataka. They don't live in Goa, despite the fact that one tiger was killed with 3 subadults. Now, subadults don't stay, tigers, once it's a male, he has to go somewhere else. But if it's a subadult, he's tolerated, but he's tolerated always with his mother. And the mother will protect him. So, normally a mother will have 2 or 3 of these subadults, or 3 or 4 cubs, or whatever it is. The state government says, these are not cubs, these are subadults. And therefore, it's not a family. There's a weird amount of, So we said, what shall we do? We said, we just take all the camera traps of the forest department itself and put them on fish curry rice, because we are right now in the court and we're putting this entire chapter in the proceedings in the Supreme Court, because somebody has to be able to look at all these pictures at all different dates and decide whether this is tiger territory or not. And if you ask Rajendra Kerkar, who is a tiger man, he says, if you look at the vocabulary of Goa, the names of people, Vaga Chiper, Vagator, Wag, everywhere there's a Wag. And the Wag is a tiger, and this was tiger terrain. And you want to now just say, Mr. Rane says, I am a lover of the tiger. I've got beautiful tiger pictures of all the tigers in different wildlife sanctuaries that I have visited. But he doesn't want to allow the tiger in his own domain. So sometimes, then of course the beauty of the spiders. Again, we couldn't have done this in black and white. We just come as a big blob. But look at these characters. They look like some, guys who are going to invade Iran or something, American armada. They have got so many legs, so many eyes, and those eyes can move in different directions at the same time. Now look at this guy. He's a piece of art. I mean, it looks like the Queen of England. Um, this guy is carrying his entire, eggs on his back, and he's made of glue, sort of, and this chap, isn't he handsome? He's always saying, don't get too close because I'll put some of these things into you. Then you have this guy again. He's a hairy spider. He's got hair over all his legs, and those are sensors. Then you have this beautiful spider, which is also almost illustrated by an artist. And here's another guy going out for an evening dance, all decked up in green. And look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. Look at the symmetry. And these are only 8 of the hundreds of tigers, spiders we have got in Goa. We don't notice them. There are people who spend their entire life and don't see a spider at all. Now beaches. We couldn't put any of Pankaj Cha's pictures of beaches in Goa because we went with him. I personally went with Pankaj Cha. He's one of India's best photographers. He now lives in Goa partly and partly in Bombay. And we went to all the locations from Tiracol right down to Paulin beach. And we took pictures of, not knowing why we were doing it, but we said, let's do it. And we got all these pictures, and then we said, let's have an exhibition. During the first release of the Fish Curry Rice book by Menaka, we had an exhibition of the beaches of Goa, and these are the pictures, 1992 pictures. And now we have decided to do all the same route again, 30 years later, to see what's happened to those beaches. I think most of you will begin to weep if you see the contrast. So right now I'm not showing those to you, but this, now can you tell me which beach this is? Sinkeri, correct, that is the Taj, the fort, Aguada fort. You can see that. Now if you go, you may not see it like that. What is this beach? Keri beach, correct. Keri in North Goa. We took this picture from Tiracol fort on the other side of the beach. But this beach is now shattered. If you go, the whole frontage is filled with those groins, cement groins, and they have destroyed the entire beach. There's nothing left, and they were going to put a bridge across this portion to the other side for the Tiracol golf course. This one, Vagator, right? This one, this is Palia beach, where the Sweetwater Lake is. This is Kanduli. Would you recognize these places today? This is Baga, seen from Baga Hill from the top. We took this picture of Baga. It took only a few boats at that time, 1992, and a couple of shacks you can see very far down, but nothing else. This is now South Goa. This you can see the only construction there was Bogmala Hotel, Oberoi Hotels. Otherwise, everything is today it's all covered. The left side is all covered. This is Palalem, correct? That noticeable stone, and on the other side is the island. Sandesh?
This is Galjiba.
No. This is Mashe, taken from Mashe. Yes. This one is? This is Talpona and Galjibag. Galjibag and Talpona. Galjibag is the first one and Talpona is the next one. You can see it in the background, and we have taken it from the hill outside. This one? Betul, correct. This is Betul. Taken from the other side, from Kitol Plateau. This one? This is Galjibag. Galjibag, now a very, very huge turtle nesting site, Galjibag. This is Galjibag. This is a close-up, the other one was a long shot. Again, this doesn't emerge. These are pictures of, for example, the mangroves along both sides of the highway going from Panjim to Santa Cruz. And many of you may have noticed this right side which has been killed. There's a whole court inquiry on it, and this is the close-ups of the mangrove which are dead. I'm basically trying to introduce a little bit to to the goriness that's happening now, to the beauty that we inherited.
What would be the reason for that? Any
Well,
particular
there are
reason?
many allegations. One is that they are proposing to put some settlement there. The other thing is that
Chemicals from-
they closed the
water.
input point for the water while they were constructing the road, because these road engineers, they don't bother very much about.
There is also
about
this is behind my house only.
Huh.
They say that there
Actually,
are mechanics.
actually these were fields before, if I'm not mistaken.
These were fields
These
which
fields
have been
before.
become mangroves. Yes, become mangroves.
And as the water, as you
Yes.
said, sir, the water has been contaminated there for quite a long time. When the construction happened, the planks were not put in properly.
For flushing in the
For
water,
flushing
yes,
out.
because unless this gets salt water, it will not survive. We have a huge problem with this, mangroves and fields. Many places people have broken the embankments because of fishing, illegal fishing, and the water has come in, and then the water has brought in the mangroves. The mangroves are colonizers. You don't need to plant mangroves. Only the forest department believes in planting mangroves. Mangroves are colonizer species. If there is sufficient amount of appropriate saline water, it will come. Whether you want it or not, it will be there. If you try to plant it in a place, where it's not suitable, you may do whatever you want, spend all government money, our money, everything, but no mangrove will come up. This is the Kazan. You can see how it's going. It's no longer able to, the salt water has come in and create, all these are mangroves which have been created in the Kazan by salt water, which should not be there. This is a sign of severe ecological distress. And this has been going on for the last 20 to 25 years, and not a single person is interested.
The Kazans actually were reclaimed from mangroves most probably thousands of years
Yeah,
back.
but now they are
So
reverted.
They are going back to their original.
Yeah, but
place.
in terms of
In a way, I
sea
feel it
level
is good
rise,
because there is some ban on cutting of
mangroves.
mangroves, but there is no ban on growing or putting structures in the field.
Yeah. And now with the
In a
present
way, I feel it's
ministers.
better that mangroves are taking over back what they
Yes.
were originally.
Yeah, actually, there's a conflict. There's a Kazan law which says that you can't convert a Kazan to development.
Yes. No, it
And
has
there
been-
is a mangrove law which says you can't
cannot
remove the
cut
mangroves.
mangroves.
So if you want to get the Kazan field back, you have to remove the mangroves, which is you have to close the
You
embankment.
just close the water and it will go on
die.
its own.
But right now, there's anybody coming there to claim that Kazan land, because the farmer has gone and it has now become a wilderness. So as a policy, we NGOs support that it remain as a mangrove. Because if you
It's
remove the
better,
mangrove,
then
yes,
it's going to go for
it's
development.
going to go for something else. That's very clear.
Trimming.
Yeah.
No, you can't touch them actually.
And the last portion, which I thought I'd just highlight to you, because there are others, is this one of the really good successful programs in Goa, conservation programs, has been the Olive Ridley conservation program. And you will be amazed at the results. This is, of course, coming up on Modjim Beach to layer eggs. But look at that small guy. He's able to go a distance of 20 to 50 meters sometimes, right to the water, purely on the initial strength that is there in his body, and get into the salt water. And sometimes there are, of course, a large number of them all scampering. If you want to look at this miracle of nature, there is a hatching that will take place around about, there are two hatchings due, the last of the season in Morje, on 17th of May and probably 19th of May. So if any of you want to go there during that time, you have to go there between 7 and 12 in the night. And you can watch the eggs, the babies coming out from the sand, and then the process by which they are encouraged. They are not encouraged. They hold strong torches standing in the water, so that they are invariably drawn towards the water in the quickest possible time. Because on these beaches there are a lot of other artificial rights and so on, which can create problems for them finding their way to the sea. So if any of you want, I can give you the number of the person, and you can go and check them.
It's done through the forest department, I think.
Yeah, forest department. Now this look at this figure. This is when it started, 1999-2000, when the conservation program. See, the number of eggs laid there in 1999 was 2,262, and the number of hatchlings was 147. And look at the one in 2023-2024, total number of eggs. Nests alone are 447 compared to 24. This is because of a protection program. Now, what is built into the protection program is the life of the olive ridley, which is the maturity of, not life, maturity of the organism quickly. And it takes about between 20 to 25 years before it is able to begin laying eggs itself. I mean, it grows up to that size, it takes 15 to 20 years. But then it invariably comes to the beach where it was hatched. Now you can look at the year, it's exactly 25 years from the time that the conservation started. So the baby turtles have grown up and they are all coming back to the same beaches. So obviously, previously there was not even a single turtle going to the sea, but in that first year 1,470 turtles were released into the sea. And you can see the exponential growth. 25 years later they have reached nearly 1 lakh turtles. This has now become a highly conscious program and very difficult to dislodge. There are a lot of still local conflicts here and there, but even the people who put up shacks and so on, they are conceding that these are important things for getting tourists there, sensible tourists, sustainable tourists, people who are interested in coming to Goa and not disturbing the environment and actually seeing that it's preserved so that all these ecosystems function. And this again is something which you can find only in the fish curry rice, because all the story from 1996 when these sites were first declared in the coastal zone management plan till today. All those we have been monitoring for all those many years. And we were there in 1992 when we first visited those beaches in the night, because we were told that all the people were taking away those eggs and they were being sold for 2 rupees in the liquor bars when they're having their drink. They would have a hard-boiled turtle egg for their extra. So we saw the open the nests and so on, and then we got in touch with the forest department, got it put into the CRZ notification, and finally worked with the officers. And the first turtle that came after this program, the forest officers, decent enough, called me to MOG and said, "Sir, you come here because this is all the result of the Goa Foundation's efforts, and we are very happy to be part of this program." And then they were the most excited every time an additional turtle came. And now, of course, it's history, and it's all reflected in Goa Foundation. So I think I've sort of given you some sort of idea about what has happened in Goa in terms of our ecological assets, and what is sort of happening to them even now in terms of their conservation and so on. But I can only in 15 minutes give you a sort of an inkling, because I've got 2 more interesting speakers, and particularly Swabu and Prashanti, who will work with different media. Swabu I'm not going to describe him. Let him come and describe himself. But the fish curry rice present edition would be pale in every way were it not for Swabu. Swabu, come and tell us how you made this thing inside.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Claude, for that very generous intro. I actually myself don't know who I really am, and I think this is where a lot of my practice has been derived from, where if anybody asks me what do you do, even I'm like, I really don't know, but I think what has led me to my practice is filling in the gaps. And I think visual arts has been a medium through which I create and express and make. But I realized that I'm holding a lot of grief in many ways, and having lived in Goa for the last 12 years, and through our work with the Armchair Mole Citizen Movement in the last 6 years, I really realized that art holds a really deep power. And when we look at fish curry rice and its first 3 words, which are memory, ecology, and resistance, the biggest archiver of these feelings is an artist. And who is an artist? And what role can it play in a book like this? So when this book did come into its making, and I was actually in Goa Foundation doing a lot of the Armchair Mole work and troubling Claude, and that's when this project came up, and I was like, how can I contribute and where can I fill up space? And when I did see the book, one of the first things that did come to me was, even through our work in the Mole campaign, is that we always have these binaries of who does what, right? The scientist does this, the ecologist does this, the activist does this, the lawyer does this. But where do we all come together? Where does all this knowledge come together, and where does it get layered in a way where it can be understood without the ivory towers that each of these departments are sitting on, whether it's science, whether it's art. Most people here go like, I don't understand art. Most people go like, I don't understand science. Most people go like, I don't understand this, because the language is coded for us to separate each other. And in the structure of that, it's kind of interesting is why we are where we are at. Why policy is being shaped the way it is, why land is being developed the way it is, why do we understand what is a forest the way it is, why do we understand people are the way they are, why are these separations existing. And the power of this book to me was that it was an incredible citizen manual first. It was the citizens of Goa speaking up for their land, not first as the activists, as the writer, as the scientist. It was people who've had relationality. And I think that is really, to me, was the potent power where the art forms came in. And through the archive of this book, you actually get introduced through each chapter. There's 16 chapters in the book, and you enter each chapter with 16 Goan artists who've also been working with these thematics in long-term forms over the years. And I thought that would be a really interesting positionality, which Claude was amazingly excited about too, which I loved, was that, when you introduce a chapter, you're positioning art and the knowledge of what art can bring and the knowledge of what a researcher and scientist can bring on the same platform. And somewhere that encourages intersectionality in the truest form, where both of our knowledges hold form in the fight ahead. And I'll take you through some of the work that the artists have brought in. I think first and foremost was actually restoring this cover. I think that was one of the first things, because I was like, Claude, we have Mario Miranda who's made you a type stamp. Like, there's no font that exists for this. So restoring this cover was one of the most special things that I could do in the beginning of this project. And choosing this yellow again was again coming back to the idea of what is Goan color, like, from the red oxide to the yellow ochre to the indigo blue. These just seem like colors, but they hold identity, they hold relationality. Why is it when we see suddenly a multicolored building, a glass building, or suddenly a place looking like Gurgaon or something, is because it's losing its cultural context, and colors hold memory. And that's why the first thing when you see this design, you're like, oh, this reminds me of a sunny Goa. And this is where art comes in. It works on these very subconscious levels of how we relate to each other. So this is one of the first chapters that you do get introduced to, and this is an artwork by Nishant Saldana, and that's really interesting. So wherever each chapter opens up in the book, at the bottom right you get introduced to each artist and the practice that they've been following. And it's interesting because, when you think of a forest, if I ask you, what was the first thing that would come to your mind in terms of quick imagery? Let's just play. Trees, okay, let's say more. Birds, streams, anything else? What else is coming? What color is it? Do you see cats? Do you see leopards? Do you see tigers? Right? Most of the time, these are the images that come up. But that's also because those are the images you've been fed. When you Google a forest, the first thing you see are all the big cats, the big elephants. But actually, what's super interesting, when you walk into a forest, you don't see a tiger. You don't always see a bird. You hear a bird. The bird is probably somewhere in the foliage. But this is where things get really interesting, because when Nishant does draw the forest and depicts the Western Ghats, he actually depicts all the micro-habitats that he does witness, which is a lanternfly, which is the flowers that he sees, which is a damselfly that he sees. And all of these are so crucial to how you imagine a forest. A forest is not just the big tree, the big cat, the waterfall. It is all these micro elements that make its identity. So in some way, in the kind of artists that did come into the book, we were also rebelling against the imageries that we are fed into a conventional idea of how we understand a landscape. Why is it that we care more when the rights of a tiger come in, but not of a damselfly when a stream is polluted? They both hold equal importance on the ecological health of a space. And another thing that was super interesting for me was, when we look at especially the act of conservation, right, we always in many ways separate our relationality to a place. And I think what was really beautiful while finding all these artists and working with these artists in Goa was that a lot of the practices of Goan artists are not separate from their surrounding environment. They're literally engaging with it and depicting it in their own ways. These are works by Trisha Dai Sabir, who lives in Sukur. And she's been archiving the plants of the plateau for the last God knows how many years. She just goes and she draws them, and she's been drawing them, and she's been stacking them. And they actually hold such an incredible space, because to me it was like almost this beautiful relationship of a girl and a plateau that lives right behind her. And these flowers don't appear every season. They appear in different seasons, and she keeps drawing them over time. And suddenly when this book came up and the chapter was in the plateaus, I was like, this is where it'll probably sit. So it's this beautiful relationality where these artists have been engaging with their natural surroundings and responding to them, responding to their time cycles, their life forms, and hold incredible knowledge. So when they sit next to a researcher who's written a chapter, they kind of build different ways of seeing, not just from a singular perspective, and that kind of adds a beautiful value to how we see a space. This is actually a really interesting artwork by Goran. Actually, I don't know if you can see very clearly, but he's been reminiscing loss, particularly growing up around the coast. And we, of course, all know the classic terracotta tiles that make up the coastline of Goa. And on the algae that freezes up, like dries up after every monsoon, out of the grief that he was holding of what's happening to the coastline, he actually would take a little scratcher and then he would scratch the landscapes that he's lost over time, over the years. So this kind of emotional response to me is something so profound, where an artist is using tactile materials that belong to the environment, that are creating imaginations of a Goa that is coming from a grief of what they've lost. So what you actually, I don't know if you can see very clearly, what you see in the central image are these drought-ridden images. On top is a dried up river. At the bottom is this dried khazan, which he's lost over time. And then he builds these gigantic installations using just the terracotta roofs and a natural form of making that tells his story of the Goa that he's lost. This is a work by Danica, and I don't know if it's not super clear here, but she's another incredible photographer. And one of the main things also while picking up all these different art forms was looking at the diversity of mediums that artists are using around us, whether it's the terracotta tile on their roof, whether it's a little camera that they have or on a tide pool. So she's actually been documenting the river mouth at the Mandovi and finding these incredible sea creatures. So when we often think of a river, we will think of the fish and the dolphins, which of course have, again, populous imageries because that's the images you've been fed, but they actually hold so many more microhabitats. So for me, like, stepping into this place was really powerful, that how can the artists also push the idea of how we imagine these spaces, because whenever we talk about conservation things, you always, the two words that come up is protect and save, right? Because I think there's so much of grief and loss that we just like stop everything, but we've completely forgotten that there's also nourishment, that we have to nourish these places again, we have to reimagine these places. And again, a lot of the places have been damaged and degraded and lost, so how do we start reimagining what is their future in a world like today? And this is where art steps in. It allows us to imagine in a time of crisis, when we are filled with grief, when we are filled with loss, when we are reading these incredibly dense chapters around what all we've lost. You stop at an image and you see a possibility of, oh, but this is still there. What could it be? What could it become? Who can I be in this future role? I could go on and on about each artist that's basically worked in depth. This is an artist called Waylon James D'Souza, who's been looking at particularly the Galjibag seafront, and after the highway came up, the mudscapers left, and he came across this dolphin carcass there, and from that he built like this really beautiful storytelling around using azulejos and construction sites as a mix of what's happening to the coastline and the loss that we're facing, but using iconography that's rooted in Goan imagery, which is another beautiful installation. And now I'll come into another chapter of the role of what arts can take in understanding. So just for quick tops, when you see this image, what are the first thoughts that come to your mind? What do you guys see? Yes, it's part of Save More, I can tell you that. But let's look at it a little bit more in detail. So just to give you a bit of context, this is actually an 18-page paper on forest fragmentation. Now, if I tell you what is fragmentation of a forest, what comes to your mind? What do you think of? Is there any context? Maybe you don't even know what it means, right? They're just big words, fragmentation of a forest. What really happens? So this was actually a work created with the Amcha Molle campaign and Zai Borkar and a group of 6 or 7 scientists, where over 6 months this artwork was produced, which covers every aspect of the fragmentation of a forest paper. So it's super interesting because what you see on top is soil erosion. What you see over, let me just come, that might be easier. So what you see here is what happens with road kills once a road comes in. And every creature you see actually belongs to this region of the Molle National Park. You see human-animal conflict. You see like birds that will migrate away. You see like things being like there's also man-animal conflict. There's poaching that will come in. There's soil erosion. There's tiger conflict. So all these things appear. So through this artwork, we could go to different public libraries, reading rooms, and start talking to people about what really happens when a road pulls through a forest, right? Because when we imagine it, we're like, what's the big deal in a road? It's just a road going through a forest. The animal can just cross it, the bird can just fly over. But what actually happens in this scenario? And sometimes a dense stack of paper piled with big words is not the best way to understand that. So collaborations at this stage are the most crucial ways to understand how we understand the world around us. And it has been one of the most successful formats in which we have reached so many people to really understand when we classify development, what does it actually look like? Because this is exactly the site that you do end up seeing once a roadway starts getting built. So this is understanding crisis. And then on the other hand, you can also look at what does like the imaginations of the Western Ghats look like. So this is an artwork that was done by me, which looks at not a singular habitat, but the interconnectedness of habitats. Every habitat is connected to each other. The reason why the coast looks like the way it does in Goa is because the way the ghats touch the coast, because of the way the rivers work in between. So to not isolate these environments, not see like that is the forest, this is the coast, this is the mangrove, and I will protect this mangrove. They're interconnections. So how do we start creating visual imageries that start depicting not isolated environments, but connected environments that again forefront creatures that we do see around us. So it actually highlights some of the most lesser known creatures, from moths to insects to lizards to cuttlefish to the turtles. And at the center of it is of course the indigenous people of Goa, because without that, when you don't forefront sort of the protection of people's rights, you will lose everything after that. So these are just some of the kind of imaginations that you will find in the book that aid the narrative in many ways. These are two really incredible works by John Pereira and Asabri Gaurav, and to me they're really interesting because they're completely different imaginations of how Goan artists see their agrarian lands. And actually, when you see John's work, he's an incredible artist from Madgaon who I often see in different parts painting these landscapes, and a lot of these landscapes are lost now, but they become an archive that is a little deeper than just seeing a photograph, right? Because what John is capturing is like almost his love, his time, the way he has been seeing light, and it really comes across in his images. And even with the sabri, like you see the Prajata flowers, you'll see the kola of the banana, you'll see the mango trees. So everything being depicted in an image is not something that is a part of their surroundings. It's a lived relationality with the world around them. And then, of course, there are the archives also of the same kind of images which were done by Mario Miranda. So over time, you're seeing, because when you think of Goa, of course, you always think of Mario Miranda, but there's been such an incredible range of artists who've been making here, and the most incredible mediums which come across in the book. I, of course, had to put this work here because the first time when I saw this spread in the book, I cried. I literally had I went home and I was like, what have we done? And I think the reason why I want to add this is because I don't even think Claude imagined what he's doing at this point was creating such an important archive. Because what does this do? It's a photograph that hits us to a real reality of what we've lost. And is it possible to go back? I don't know. But what do we become after this is the question that artists and creatives like us can help us imagine. Like, what does a future entail for ourselves? Another really important, incredible part of the book is, and I really pushed for Claude to make them all full-size pages, even though we were fighting for a lot of page count, was the maps, which have been specially commissioned by Tech for Wildlife, and they've done the most incredible job because none of these maps are something you'll find online. And I was like, Claude, somebody should just be able to pick up this book, photocopy it, and make these multiple scans to be able to use them. And I think it's one of the most amazing archive resources that you do come across. So throughout the book, you will find poetic renditions, scientific renditions, just like all these different formats of the visual form that will aid the writing in a way for you to imagine really what the fight for Goa lies ahead. And now comes the point of grief. Like, of course, there have been artists who've been responding from love, care, and wonder, but there's also been like grief and anger and rage also being a source of making. This is one of my favorite works that was done during the Mandalas for Maulay campaign. During the Amche Maulay campaign, a bunch of artists came together and ran the Mandalas for Maulay campaign. And this was done by Sanaivi Nayak, depicting like what happens with railroad infrastructure, particularly the coal port coming into Goa. So everything that he's used is like the green depicts the fragmented forest, the red depicts the red earth of the coal mines. And these are images like if you've driven around Goa and seen a coal mine, they just immediately hit something in your brain that you've seen this before. Is of course the work by Mr. Saporkega right here, and which I find very, very, very powerful, where it's like that classic typography that says "our mine" using iron fillings, and I thought it was it's just that claiming of voice, and it's where you enter the undermining chapter for Goa from, and it's just such a great force to be. This wording to me was incredibly powerful about what are rights, who do things belong to. And with that, I could go on and on because there are just so many incredible works in this book that you come across, from photography to this is by Rajaram Nayak, who's been documenting eco-legacies within Goa from various different lenses. So you will really come across different aspects and renditions of how diverse Goan voices have been, particularly in the act of making. Whether this is, this is a Matoli during Ganeshan. I mean, I saw this and I was like, a Rakandar made like this. It just blew my mind away that this kind of an archive, and thank God we have a picture of it. So in some way, I just want to encourage all of you here also, because art is not for the artists. We all are creative in many, many ways, in ways of waking. And I think in the work that we do, when we share our knowledge and make together, the larger picture gets stitched in a far more layered way, where we can understand things with far more complexity and not a singular narrative. And to really see something for a whole, we have to have this almost like a bibinka is like what I like to call it. It should be so layered that I just could like peel it off each layer and see new sides to it. And I think with that, I'd end with this incredible artwork also by Ashish Faldesai, which comes in the book, which says, "Monkey sees, monkey do." And it is like, to me, like another powerful thing of like, we keep thinking that, oh, this one did it before, this one did it after. So actually, every act of our own shapes the act of the future. And I think, like Grace also said, like the fact that Claude is doing this is why we are also here and why more people have to follow. I think that classic example of the youth will save the world is a crisis, because the youth doesn't really know what the past was and doesn't know what the future is. But really intergenerational work where we all hold our hands together and get onto the battlefield is the way ahead. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.
हांव घरान निमाणें, सगळ्यान निमाणें. आनी निमाण्याचें कितें जाता तुमकां खबर आसतली. सगळ्यांक दिसता लाड जाता म्हणून, भाजी जाता. हांव कितें कितें डायलॉग घेवन आयिल्लें न्ही, ते सगळे गेले, सोंपले. पयलीं रॅपरान उडयले, मागीर क्लॉडान उडयले. एनीवे, हांव तशें भिना. हांव कितें म्हणटा न्ही, म्युजीक ना म्हजें, आनी व्हडलें तुमकां कांय सांगपाचें ना. पूण हांव म्हणटा, आमी सगळीं या, आमी दर्यार या. तुमी जाणा, हो आमी फातर म्हणून येवची या, रॉक, एंड लेट्स रॉक. ह्या फातराचेर हांव चडटां. जाणटें बी जालां म्हणूं नाका. आय हॅव रिटायर्ड आनी आय हॅव रिलॅक्स्ड. बरें योगा बिगा करता. सो वास्को पावले हांव. वास्को आमचो इतले फातर आसा, खंय बसपाक मेळटा. येता आवाज येता तुमकां? धाराचो वेव्स. सोबीत सुंदर आमचें गोंय, झाडां माडांनी नेटोयलोलें. अशेंच सोबीत सुंदर आमचें गोंय, झाडां माडांनी नेटोयलोलें. अशेंच संदेश. दर्यांनी पळय, दर्या देगे वयलें कितें कितें ना जालां, आनी आमी उतरां घडयल्लीं तीं बी ना जालां. पूण दर्याच्या देगांनी भरलेलें हें हें कितें? ही ऑयल कसली? हां, ही रेंव, ही कशी अशी काळी जाल्या, तांबडी. म्हजी धवी माती खंय? आनी हे काळे काळे कितें डांबर? ऑयल? कितें म्हणटात? फॅक्ट्रीचे आमची घाण आणि कझिनोची हय हय हे सगळ्यांनी आमचो नितळ जो दर्या आसा तो नितळ दर्या काबार केला हय काय ना कितें म्हणटा चल चल हांव घरा वचून न्हाता तरी मातशें पावलें हांव आमच्या बिल्डिंगेंत आमची बिल्डींग पयलीं हांगा खंय कुळागर आसतालें तें कुळागर ना करून हांगा बिल्डींग बांदल्या आनी हांवें वर्रां नेट्टान हांगा फ्लॅट घेतला हें सगळें पळय कितें शिमिटान सगळें ही सगळी शिमीट इल्ली माती दिसता तुमकां हांगा इल्ली तरी माती दिसता जमीन दिसता तुमकां कोणाकय तुमी खंय वचा ह्या बिल्डिंगेक वचा ना जाल्यार त्या बिल्डिंगेन वचा आनी खंय वता कितें मेळटा आमकां पेवमेंट आनी इल्ले इल्लेशे जागो दवरून तातूंत झाडां पळयल्या तुमी खंय गेली आमची माती हां कित्याक गेली ती माती चल हांव न्हाता दोळे धांपता शी 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 उदक तांबडे तांबडे उदक ही परिस्थिती न्ही आमची उदक जर पिवपाक जाय निवळ येता ना आक्वागार्ड घाल ही आयज अशी परिस्थिती कशी जाल्या हांव म्हटलें की 5वें चार आमचें गोंय कितें आसतालें तें 5वें चार गोंयान आमी 5वें चार म्हणटा मागीर केन्नाय विचारलें जाल्यार म्हणटा ना 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 आमी भात पिकयताले शेतां आसतालीं आनी कितें आसतालें रानान गेलीं जाल्यार कितें मेळटालें ताणें बरो विचारलो प्रश्न रान म्हणजे कितें काय म्हणून चान्नां चुन्नां काण्णां बोरां आनी मागीर ते होमले ते मुयो ते कशे कापताल्यो कांटे लागताले आयज खंय आसा आमचो बरो दोंगर आसा आमच्या गांवांत एक दिसा हालींच हांव दोंगरार गेल्लें दोंगरार वचूंक ना गांवांत गेल्लें आनी रस्त्यार म्हाका एकटी बायल मेळ्ळी म्हाका म्हणपा लागली शी बेस्ट आं प्रशांती तूं आनी संदेश ते इनफ इज इनफ मुवमेंट पळय चलयता वालोर तुमकां म्हटलें हांव ना तातूंत संदेश आसा खरेंच गो म्हणपाक लागलो सरकारान गोंय काबार केलां म्हणपाक लागलें दोंगर मारले आनी झाडां मारले आनी हें जालें आतां आमचें कितें जावपाचें आसा हय 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 भुरगे कितें करता आनी रिटायरमेंटाक पयसो बी मेळ्ळा आमकां म्हणटा मेळ्ळा कितें पळया कितें हांव तुका सांगता प्रशांत एक काम करा तुमचो दोंगर आसा न्ही बेस्ट प्लॉट जातले आनी ते प्लॉट विका भरपूर पयसो येतलो देवाच्यान हांव फट सांगना दीस इज अ फॅक्ट म्हाका त्या बायलेन सांगतकच हांव तिजेर थापट मारूं काय थुकूं इतलें जालें म्हाका कित्याक आमी सो कॉल्ड प्रस्थापीत जे आसा सो कॉल्ड आमी आमकां सगळें जगाचें पडलेलें आसा अशें म्हणपी अशें चिंततात की म्हज्या फायद्या खातीर हांव शेतांचेर बांदाचेर बंगले करतलो पण म्हणटलो कितें आय वॉन्ट टू सेव गोवा आय वॉन्ट टू सेव गोवा गोंय आमचें असली वृत्ती हांगा जी वृत्ती राजकर्त्यांची आसा जी वृत्ती बिल्डरांची आसा जी वृत्ती पयशेकारांची आसा ती वृत्ती आमची सगळ्यांची जाय केली हांव म्हज्या लायफा फाटल्यान जिविता फाटल्यान धांवत गेलें जेन्ना हांवें म्हजी नोकरी धरली तेन्नाच्यान हांव पळयतां जेन्ना हांव कॉलेजीन आशिल्लें तेन्नाच्यान पळयतां गोवा फावंडेशनान 2 मनशां मरतात खंयच्यो केसी घेतात हांगा धांवतात थंय धांवतात कितें हार्ट एटॅक येवं दी हात पांय मोडू दी चलनी ती काम करतात आनी आमी कितें करतात यू आर इन अ कम्फर्ट झोन आमकां खंयच भायर वचपाक नाका कित्याक आमी फेसबुकाचेर बसून इंस्टाग्रामाचेर बसून फॉरवर्ड करून आमी सांगतली येस वी आर ट्रायंग टू सेव गोवा ओके आनी हें कित्या खातीर करतात आमी? कारण आमकां दिसता विकास हो जावपाकूच जाय. म्हाका कोण एकट्यान विचारलें तशें जाल्यार आमी कितें धोलींनी रावपाचें, केव्सांनी रावपाचें? कोणी सांगलां? आमी एक लक्षांत घेवपाक जाय, आमी जर सैम पळयलें, नेचर पळयलें, वा आमचे जे पुर्वज आशिल्ले, एन्सेस्टर्स आशिल्ले, तांकां पळयलें जाल्यार एक लक्षांत येता, ते दोन गजालींचेर सामके लक्ष दिताले. हांव तुमकां एक फोकातलें, म्हाका मदीं मदीं याद जायना, जाता तशें सांगता. एक फोकातलें पद आसा. काट्याचो वाकर, वाकराचें बिंदूल, बिंदलाचें तवशें, तवशाचो बैल, बैलाची बायल, बायलेचें डुबडुबे, डुब 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 डुब, बायलेचें डुबडुबे, डुब डुब डुब. कितें सांगता तें? एक गजाल दुसऱ्या गजालीचेर, दुसरी गजाल तिसऱ्या गजालीचेर, तिसरी गजाल चवथ्या गजालीचेर डिपेंड आसा. प्रत्येकाचे एकमेकाचेर आमी आमची जी इकॉलॉजी आसा ती. सो आमचो एक सुद्दां बारीक गजाल आमी ना केली जाल्यार सैमान जें चक्र आसा, इकोसिस्टम आसा, ती नश्ट जावपाक शकता. आमी विचार करनासतना सोरोप दिसलो मारलो, आनी वाग येयलो मारलो, तो हांगचो न्ही थंयचो न्ही अशें. पूण आमी आमचें जें इकोसिस्टम आसा ती काबार करता हें आमी लक्षानच दिना. आनी ही लक्षांत घेवपाची गरज आसा, आमी हळवे जावपाची गरज आसा, जी आमी जायना. तुमी म्हणटली कितें करुया? म्हाका खबर आसा आनी एकट्या फ्रेंडान सांगलें, हांव म्हटलें हें आमी सगळें काबार करता, कितें तरी करूंक जाय. आसा न्ही गो आमचो सुबोध, सुबोध करतलो. म्हणलें सुबोध कितें करतलो? म्युजियमान दवरतलो, फातर दवरतलो, माती दवरतलो, सगळें म्युजियमान दवरतलो. पण आमी जी माती चलतना, माती जी आमच्या पांयां पोंदा मेळ्ळ्या आमकां, तो फील येतलो? तो कांटो जो लागलो तो फील येतलो? म्हणजे आतां कशें जालां, आभासी सगळें. कशें? अमेरिकेक म्हजो चेडो आसा, हांव ताका हाय म्हणटा, कॅन आय टच हिम? हय की न्ही? सो तशेंच जालां. म्युजियमांनी आमी खुबश्यो गजाली दवरूंक जायच, त्यो दवरूंक जायच, कित्याक त्यो हळू हळू वता म्हणून. पूण जगानूय जें आमच्या समाजान आसा थंय तें राखून दवरपाक जाय. तुमी म्हणटली की हांव खूब नॅगेटीव उलयता म्हणून. नॅगेटीव जर हांव उलयत जाल्यार म्हजे बरोबर जे वाडल्यात आनी आमी मातसो मातसो बारीक बारीक संघर्श केल्यात ते म्हाका बडयतले. कित्याक जेन्ना ट्युरिजम येतालें तेन्ना जागृत गोंयकाराची फौज म्हणून आमी सगळीं कॉलेजींतल्यान क्लॉड, नॉर्मा सगळीं आशिल्लीं, सगळीं रस्त्यार विथ सेंचो कारवालो. कितलें आमी जंय जंय कितें कितें जाता, मिरामार कितें तरी पार्क बांदता, थंय धांवलीं. सगळे कडेन ह्या पोता वयल्यान त्या पोतार आमी धांवन खूब ट्राय केली. पूण आयज खरी गोंयची सासाय उठल्या. तें खबर आसा तुमकां? आज मिराबाग ज्यो बायलो आसा त्यो अश्यो उठतात की आमकां आमची शेतां जाय, आमकां आमची जमीन जाय, आमकां आमचें उदक जाय. आक्षेच्यो बायलो, सांतांद्रीच्यो बायलो, ह्यो जर तूं बायलो पळयत आनी दादले पळयत, तांचें पोट जें आसा तें हाता वयलें पोट. म्हणजे कितें? तर जेवण खाण ती जर गेली, ताणें नुस्तें विकलें, भाजी विकली जाल्यारूच तांकां पयसो येतलो आनी जाल्यारूच तांची चूल पेट्टली. ती जर घरा आसली जाल्यारूच ती जेवण करून भुरग्यांक वाडूंक शकतली. पूण हेची पर्वा करनासतना हे लोक रस्त्यार आयले सांगपाक की आमचो सैम, आमचें पर्यावरण आमकां जाय. मोरजे, हरमला, पेडणे गांव पेटून उठलो. साखळेचे दुपदरी कोळशा खातीर आंदोलन जालें आनी हें खरें आंदोलन. घडये आमी विद्यार्थी आशिल्लीं, आमी बोवाळ केलो आमकां, पण ताजे नंतर आमी आमच्या कम्फर्ट झोनान गेलीं. पूण हे जे लोक आसा ते निजाचे लोक आसा, गोंयची सासाय आसा आनी ती गोंयची सासाय उठल्या आनी त्या खातीर म्हाका इतलेंच सांगपाक जाय की ती सासाय जी उठल्या तांकां आमी साथ दिवया, तांच्या बरोबर वचून फेसबूक, इन्स्टा, व्हॉट्सॅप फॉरवर्ड करून न्ही, व्हडली व्हडली भाशणां म्हज्या भशेन करून न्ही, तर आमी तांच्या बरोबर या. गोंयकारांनो जायात जागे, गोंयकारांनो जायात जागे. अजून आसात नाडपी हांगा, अजून आसात पिडपी हांगा, तरणे आनी जाणटे सगळे. अजून कित्याक रावले होगे? जायात जागे, जायात जागे.
This is the first of 16 sessions. This is a very insane way of this Nilanpur and Sharda trying to see that I survive till 2028. They have said the 16 chapters will be performed at 16 different sessions. The speakers whom we have seen today will not come in the remaining sessions. The next one is in July, then it will be in August. And every session will have different performers and different messages. But they will all concentrate on different chapters of each book. Because each chapter, of course, is a universe in itself in terms of the information it has, the struggles and blood that has gone into it and so on. So please remember that this is not a one-time engagement, because engaging in Goa is again not a one-session engagement. It may take a couple of years of your time as well. And therefore, this is the program. Today is the first, but be prepared for 15 more of the same quality. Thank you.